The moment I heard the front door click behind me, my heart shattered. My daughter's voice, once the sweetest melody in my life, now sliced through the night like a knife. "Take your things, Dad. You're not welcome here anymore." She didn't even look at me when she said it. Her eyes were glued to her phone, her other hand wrapped tightly around the lottery check that had just changed everything. $12 million. 12 million reasons to forget who raised her. I stood on the porch in my slippers, my worn coat barely shielding me from the sharp autumn wind. The bag she'd packed for me sat by my feet, me whole life reduced to a duffel. The house, once filled with Sunday dinners, birthday candles, and lullabies, was now a fortress I was being exiled from. And the cruelest irony of all, that winning ticket was in my name. It had been my ritual for years, ever since Martha died. Every Friday, I'd walk to the gas station down on Maple and buy a ticket. Same numbers every time. Her birthday, our anniversary, the day Emily was born. That day, I'd been too tired to walk. My knees weren't what they used to be, and the cold had set in early. Emily was heading out, and I'd asked her to pick up the ticket for me. "Just the usual, sweetheart," I said, handing her the crumpled $2 bill. "You know the numbers." She'd smiled, then an absent kind of smile, like her mind was already on other things. "Sure, Dad. I'll get it." She did. But the next morning, when the numbers hit, everything changed. At first, there were tears, happy ones. Screams of disbelief. She danced around the kitchen, phone in hand, squealing, "I won! I won!" I stood frozen, toast in one hand, coffee in the other. "You mean, we won?" I asked gently. She blinked. "What?" The ticket was for my numbers. The ones I play every week. Her smile faltered for a split second, just a flicker, almost imperceptible. But I saw it. "Oh, come on, Dad. I bought it. I paid for it. It's mine. You used the numbers I gave you." "But I filled it out." I handed it in. "Doesn't that make it mine?" I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to be part of her joy. "We can share it. You know I don't need much. Just enough to fix the roof, maybe finally get that surgery." "That's not how this works," she said sharply, her voice suddenly cold. "The ticket's in my hand. My name's on the claim form." I felt the floor vanish beneath me. By the end of the week, she had a lawyer, a financial advisor, a brand new Mercedes parked in the driveway, and I had an eviction notice. She said she needed space, said she wanted to renovate, said I'd be happier somewhere with other people your age. She put me in a motel off the highway, paid for 2 weeks, then said I'd have to figure things out from there. I didn't cry the first night, or the second, but on the third night, when I found myself heating a cup of soup on a rusty hot plate, the tears finally came. Not for the money. For her. I spent hours staring at that photo of her in my wallet, the one from when she was 5, holding a dandelion, grinning with her 2 front teeth missing. I remembered every bedtime story, every skin knee I bandaged, every time she cried into my chest after a breakup, swearing I was the only man she could trust. Where had that girl gone? I went back to the gas station on Maple. Larry, the clerk, saw me and lit up. "Hey, old man lottery," he laughed. "Big congrats, huh?" I blinked. "What?" "Your daughter came in waving that ticket like a flag. Said she was cashing in for the both of you." My blood ran cold. Did she sign my name?" He frowned. "No. She said she was you. Said she just looked young for her age." That was the moment the pieces began to fall into place. She hadn't claimed it as herself. She pretended to be me. The ticket wasn't just played with my numbers. It was bought under my name. And that changed everything. I went to the lottery commission office 2 days later. They looked at me like I was insane at first. Old man, worn clothes, asking questions about a claimed ticket. Then I showed them my ID, my social security number, and the small slip of paper I'd kept, me usual numbers, handwritten in Martha's scrawl, kept in my wallet like a prayer. Their smiles disappeared. Things moved quickly after that. Investigations, interviews, forensics on handwriting, video surveillance from the gas station. Turns out pretending to be someone else and forging signatures to claim millions is a felony. Turns out I was still the rightful winner. But I didn't press charges right away. No, I waited. I waited until Emily came to the motel, unannounced. Not out of guilt, but because the court had frozen the account. She was furious. "You did this to me," she screamed. "You did it to yourself," I said calmly. "All I wanted was to share it with you." She looked at me like I was dirt. "You think you can play victim now? After everything I've done for you? You mean the motel?" She didn't answer. I didn't want revenge, I added. I just wanted a daughter. And that's when she broke. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the motel floor and sobbed loud, racking cries that sounded like they came from a child, not a grown woman. And for the first time in weeks, I saw the girl with the dandelion again. I sat beside her, put a hand on her shoulder. She didn't shake it off. I haven't decided what to do next. The lawyers say I could take it all, that I could press charges and she'd face real consequences. But as I write this, I'm sitting in the old house again. She's upstairs, asleep. There's no Mercedes in the driveway anymore. She sold it to cover some debts. The check is still frozen. The future is uncertain. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, it smells like home. There's a pot of soup on the stove. And maybe there's hope. The soup was chicken noodle. Not from a can, either made it from scratch. It tasted like Martha's, and that alone nearly broke me. We sat across from each other at the dinner table, the silence heavy with the weight of everything we hadn't said. Emily didn't touch her spoon for a long time. She just kept glancing up at me, then down at her hands, like she was bracing herself for a sentence too heavy to lift. "Do you hate me?" she finally asked. The words hit like a hammer to the chest. I didn't answer right away. "I'm disappointed," I said slowly. "But hate? No, I could never hate you." Tears rimmed her eyes. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I deserved it. After everything I've been through after Mom died, and you shut down. I blinked. I shut down. You stopped being present. I felt like I lost both of you. Her voice cracked, and something in my chest did, too. I'd spent years believing I had done the right thing by being strong, by keeping it together. But maybe in all my quiet grief, I'd forgotten to make space for hers. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't know you felt that way." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. I was angry for a long time. And when the money came, it felt like a reset. Like finally, life owed me something. "And you thought it owed you everything," I said softly. Her shoulders slumped. "Yeah." We talked late into the night. About her anger. About my silence. About the cracks in our home that had been forming for years too quiet to notice, until the whole thing caved in. She told me about debts I hadn't known she had. About the stress of her job, the loneliness she'd masked with social media smiles and polite phone calls. And I told her about the nights I stayed up, staring at her baby photos. About the guilt that haunted me, feeling like I hadn't been enough for her after Martha died. There was no shouting, no accusations. Just two people trying to find each other again in the rubble of their own damage. The lawyers still called every day. One wanted me to sue her. Another said we could settle privately and avoid the press. I didn't care about the press. I cared about what kind of man I would be if I let the money matter more than her soul. Still, I wasn't naive. There had to be consequences. Trust couldn't be rebuilt without truth. So we made a deal. We'd split the money, 50-50, but only if she came forward and admitted what she'd done, not just to the commission, but to the public. Full accountability. It wasn't punishment. It was cleansing. She agreed. Not right away, but after a few days, she said, "I think I need to face it. All of it." The day of the press conference, she wore black. I stood beside her, hand on her back as she approached the podium. The microphones hissed with anticipation. Cameras flashed like lightning. She cleared her throat. Her voice shook at first, but grew steadier as she went on. "My name is Emily Thornton. 3 weeks ago, I claimed a $12 million lottery prize under false pretenses. The ticket was not mine. It belonged to my father." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I made a terrible mistake," she continued. "Out of anger, out of greed, out of pain I never truly dealt with. But I want to make it right. And I'm here to say, publicly, that the true winner, the man who should have been celebrated, is standing right beside me." She turned to me. The entire room did, too. It was overwhelming, but I didn't flinch. I just nodded. I forgave her in front of the world. The media storm lasted weeks. Some praised her courage. Others condemned her selfishness. Most marveled at our reconciliation, like it was a miracle, like love between a parent and child was something rare and precious. Maybe it was. We received offers, interviews, book deals, even a movie script. I turned down most of them. Emily took a few, mostly to speak on the importance of accountability and healing. She donated part of her half to grief counseling centers. I donated mine to rebuild the senior center Martha used to volunteer at. But most of all, we focused on repairing what truly mattered. Us. Emily moved back in. Not because she had nowhere to go, but because we weren't finished. Every night we cooked together, sometimes in silence, sometimes to the sound of old jazz records that Martha used to love. We started walking around the neighborhood again. She helped me fix the roof. I helped her plant a new garden in the backyard, or therapy, she called it. We still had arguments. Of course we did. But they weren't sharp anymore. They were softer, rooted in care, not ego. Then came the letter. It arrived in an unmarked envelope, one Morningyo return address. Inside, a single handwritten note. You don't know me, but I watched what happened with your daughter, and I wanted you to know you gave me hope. My dad and I haven't spoken in 10 years. I'm going to call him. Thank you. Emily read it twice, then 3 times. And then she cried in my arms for the first time since she was a child. Money changes everything, they say, but I don't believe that anymore. It only reveals what was already broken, or what's worth fixing. We still have the money, but more importantly, we have each other. The summer after the press conference was the brightest one I'd seen in years. We repainted the porch. The color was Martha's favorite shade of green, soft, almost mint. Emily laughed when I accidentally dipped my whole hand in the paint tray. I chased her around the yard like we were kids again. I never thought we'd laugh like that. Not after everything. The world hadn't forgotten, of course. Every so often, someone would stop us on the street to ask for a photo or say something awkward like, "You're that lottery father, right?" I didn't mind. It was better than the pitying looks I used to get at the motel. But Emily, she struggled. She started therapy twice a week. She'd come home quiet, sometimes tear-streaked, and we'd sit on the porch without speaking. One day she said, "I thought money would make me feel safe. But it didn't. It just made me feel more exposed." I nodded. The kind of safety you want doesn't come from numbers in a bank. What does it come from? I thought for a long time before answering. Knowing someone sees you, all of you, and still stays. She stared out toward the horizon. I don't deserve that. I reached for her hand. Then earn it. Every day. We weren't perfect. There were still wounds we didn't touch. Nights I could hear her crying softly through the walls. She'd lost a Lother reputation, some friends, her confidence. But she was also growing. She volunteered at a shelter downtown, started teaching financial literacy to women in crisis. I joined her once, just to watch. She stood at the front of the room, explaining how compound interest worked and how to protect yourself from scams. She was gentle but firm, and the women listened like every word might save them. I'd never been more proud. Then one morning, in the middle of August, she walked into the kitchen and said, "Dad, we need to talk." That tone, that pause. My heart dropped. "I want to move out," she said carefully. "Not because I'm angry. Not because I'm leaving you. Just because I think I need to try being on my own again." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I found a small place, nothing fancy. Just a 1-bedroom apartment across town. I want to build something that's mine, but still have you close. I nodded, even though it hurt. She came around the table and hugged me from behind. "You'll always be home." Helping her pack felt familiar, like when she first left for college. Except this time, we folded more than just clothes. We folded years of tension and love into each box. She moved out on a Sunday. The quiet that followed was deafening. But we talked every day. She came over for dinner every Thursday. Sometimes she brought groceries. Sometimes she brought a smile and a story about her building's broken elevator. We were good, balanced, until the letter came. It was from a man named Keith Albright. He claimed to be Emily's half-brother. "I don't want money," the letter read. "I just want the truth, and maybe a chance to know where I come from." I sat at the kitchen table for over an hour, staring at it. I had no idea what it meant. Emily had no siblings, at least none that I knew of. Martha and I had been married for 32 years. We had one child. We were faithful, or so I thought. I called her. She arrived 20 minutes later, out of breath, panic in her eyes. "Is it Mom?" "No," I said, handing her the letter. "It's this." She read it. Her face drained of color. "Do you know him?" I asked gently. "No," she said. Then, quieter, "But maybe Mom did." We spent the next week digging through old boxes, Martha's journals, letters, receipts. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find. Proof? Closure? A denial? Instead, in a locked drawer of Martha's old desk, we found a single envelope addressed to E.T. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a letter. "My dearest Emily, there are things I never told you. Things I hoped would never surface. because they bring more pain than clarity. But if they do, I want you to know, I loved your father. I never stopped. But there was a momentum mistake that I carry with me every day. His name was Keith. I never told your father, and I prayed it would end with me. But if this ever reaches you, please forgive me, and tell him I'm sorry. There were no tears at first, just silence. Then Emily crumpled forward, pressing the letter to her chest like it might disappear. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. We just sat together in the soft hum of grief. Days passed. Emily tracked Keith down. He was 40, lived in Michigan, a mechanic with 2 kids and a wife who taught kindergarten. They exchanged emails first, then phone calls. Then, one Friday afternoon, she said, I'm going to meet him. Do you want me to come? No, she said, smiling. But I want you to be the first person I talk to when I get back. She was gone 3 days. When she came back, she looked lighter. He doesn't want anything, she said. He just wanted to know if the silence he grew up with meant something. And now he knows it did. She paused. He brought flowers for Mom's grave. I swallowed hard. He said he doesn't hate her, just wishes things had been different. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't just visit after death. It shows up after truth, after betrayal, after healing. Sometimes it never leaves. But sometimes it makes room for something better. The fall came quickly that year. Golden leaves, crisp mornings, and the smell of cinnamon from the neighbor's bakery. Emily and I visited Martha's grave every Sunday. We planted Mom's, told her about Keith, about the soup, about everything. Then, in late October, Emily showed up with a white envelope. I raised an eyebrow. What's this? She smiled. Something small, something overdue. Inside was a deed. She'd transferred the house into my name fully, legally, officially. It's yours, she said. No matter what happens. Always. I hugged her like I was afraid she'd vanish again. She didn't. Emily started coming by even more often after that. She helped fix the basement pipes when they burst after a cold snap. She brought Keith and his family over one weekend, and I grilled burgers on the old rusted barbecue. The kids ran circles around the house while Emily sat on the back step, watching, her smile softer than I'd ever seen it. I stood beside her. He's your brother, I said. She nodded. And somehow it doesn't feel weird. It feels inevitable, like we were always meant to find each other. I looked over at Keith, who was helping his youngest climb a tree. He looked nothing like Martha, but he laughed the same way I used to hear her laugh in the kitchen when Emily was little. I think she wanted this for all of us, I said. As the holidays approached, I started feeling something strange. At first, it was just fatigue, a stiffness in my back, then shortness of breath when walking up the stairs. I told myself it was age, just age. But when I fainted in the grocery store, they rushed me to the ER. Diagnosis, congestive heart failure. Stage 3. The doctor used a calm, professional voice. He explained lifestyle changes, medications, possibly surgery down the line. I heard every word, and somehow none of them. Emily was there the entire time. She held my hand during the tests, sat in the hallway when I asked for space, brought me apples and books I never asked for, but ended up loving. When I was discharged, she drove me home and helped me up the porch steps. You're not doing this alone, she said. I don't care what you say. I didn't fight her. I couldn't. Not anymore. The house felt warmer again with her around, like it had waited for her. For us. Like Martha was in every creak of the floorboards, reminding us this was never just wood and brick, it was love made visible. One night in January, during a quiet dinner, I pushed my plate away and looked at her. I want to do something, I said. Emily glanced up. Okay. I want to give away the money. She blinked. What? To people who need it. Not all at once. But soon. While I'm still here to see it happen. Dad. I mean it, I said. We have enough. More than enough. You're working, you have a stable life, and I'm not afraid anymore. Not of dying. Not of giving. She bit her lip, unsure whether to smile or cry. Do you want me to help? I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Only if you believe in it. We started small. A scholarship fund in Martha's name, for single mothers going back to school. Donations to the shelter where Emily volunteered. Anonymous gifts envelopes with thousands in Cashto veterans, elderly neighbors, foster homes. Word got around, but we never went public. We weren't doing it for credit. One night, after delivering a check to a struggling widower who'd just lost his job, Emily and I sat in the car outside his tiny house. Do you feel it? she asked. Feel what? The quiet. The kind that only comes when you've done something good, and no one knows but your soul. I nodded. It's the best feeling I've ever known. I started keeping a journal, not of the money or the gifts, but of the people, their names, their stories, their faces. I wrote it for Emily, and for Keith's kids, and for the future. Then came the snowstorm in March. I'd gone outside to shovel, against doctor's orders. I thought I could handle it. But halfway through, the world spun. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, fur in my arm, and Emily sitting beside me, reading a book aloud. It was Steinbeck, East of Eden. You always loved this one, she said, wiping her eyes. You remembered, I rasped. I remember everything now, she said. Everything that matters. The surgery was scheduled a week later. There was risk. There always is. Before they wheeled me in, Emily kissed my forehead. I forgive myself, she whispered. And I hope you'll keep forgiving me too. I already have, I said. When I woke up, she was still there, holding my hand, smiling. Spring came late that year. But it came. The garden bloomed again, purple tulips, yellow daffodils, a single wild rose bush that hadn't flowered in years suddenly bursting with color. Emily said it was Martha. I didn't argue. One morning, months later, as we sat on the porch sipping tea, Emily said, "There's something I never told you." I looked up. She took a breath. When I kicked you out, I cried every night. I just didn't let myself feel it. I told myself you didn't need me, that you'd been distant for so long. It didn't matter. She looked away, ashamed. But it did. It mattered. You mattered. I reached for her hand. And now? She turned back to me, her eyes wet but bright. Now I know. You were always there, even when you weren't saying a word. And I want to be that for you now. I squeezed her hand. You already are. The days started to blur after that. Recovery was slow. My body moved like it had forgotten what strength felt like, but my heart was clear. Stronger, even. Not just because of the surgery, but because of what we had become. Emily visited every day. She cooked, cleaned, filled my pill box, argued with doctors when they didn't explain things properly. She even painted the hallway a warm yellow because she read that sunlight colors help patients heal faster. I want this house to feel alive again, she said. It already does, I replied. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset melt into the horizon, I turned to her. I want to talk about the will. She froze. Dad. No. Listen. She nodded. I'm leaving the house to you. That's not a surprise. But everything else, the rest of the money, I am leaving to the fund we started. The scholarships. The shelters. The veterans. Emily didn't speak. Her eyes shimmered in the fading light. It's not because I don't trust you, I said. It's because I do. And I trust you'll understand that what we built together, it was never meant to stay locked in a bank account. She swallowed. I do understand. And I want you to keep building it. Not for me. Not for Martha. For you. For them. She nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Then, softly, you don't have to leave anything for me. You already gave me back the only thing I ever really needed. What's that? You. Months passed. I got stronger. Emily got happier. Keith visited more. Life began to hum like a soft, forgiving song. And then one day, Emily said, I've been thinking about fostering. I blinked. Fostering? There's this girl. Her name is Lena. She's 12. Smart as a whip. Her parents lost custody, and she's been bouncing between homes. She reminds me of me. When I was young. Before everything. I nodded slowly. You think you're ready? I know I am. Lena came for dinner the next week. She was quiet, guarded, but her eyes were sharp, watching everything. She barely touched her food, but when I asked her if she wanted to play checkers, she smirked and said, only if you don't cry when I win. She beat me in 3 games straight. Emily laughed so hard she snorted iced tea through her nose. The sound of that laughter, joined with Lena's giggles, echoed through the house like a hymn. And I knew. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something beautiful. One morning, as I sat in the garden reading, Lena patted up behind me. You really gave all that money away? She asked. I smiled. Almost all of it. Why? Because money can buy a lot of things. But it can't fix a heart. And I've spent most of my life trying to do just that. She considered that. Did it work? I closed the book and looked at her. It helped. But what really worked was forgiving. And being forgiven. She nodded, looking older than 12 for a moment. My mom says sorry all the time, but I don't think she means it. Sometimes people say sorry before they know how to change, I said. And sometimes the change comes later, long after the apology. Did your daughter change? I looked toward the kitchen window, where Emily was cooking with her sleeves rolled up, dancing to music only she could hear. She became the person I always knew she could be, I said. That's the greatest change of all. A year later, Lena moved in permanently. Emily adopted her officially the following spring. They planted a new garden together. This time, Lena chose the flowers lavender, lilies, and bright sunflowers that turned toward the light. I watched them from the porch, a blanket on my lap, the morning sun warm on my skin. My health declined gradually after that. The doctor said I had time. Maybe months. Maybe a year or two. But I'd already had what I needed. Peace. Not perfection. Peace. There's a difference. Emily asked if I wanted to travel. We could take a trip. You always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I've already seen everything I need, I said. Right here. In this house. In you. In Lena. So we stayed. And we lived slowly. Evenings with soup and stories. Mornings with coffee and classical music. Walks to the corner store where everyone now knew my name not because of the lottery, but because of the man I'd become after it. On my 82nd birthday, they surprised me with a small party. Just family. Keith, his kids, a few of Emily's friends. Some of the people we'd helped quietly over the years showed up, too. One man brought a framed photo of his daughter graduating from college. She wouldn't have made it without your scholarship, he said. I could barely speak, so I just hugged him. After the cake, Emily stood and raised her glass. To my father, she said, her voice steady and sure. A man who once lost everything, only to give it all away. Who taught me that love is louder than greed, that forgiveness is the strongest kind of power, and that home isn't a place. It's a person. She paused. And I thank God every day that he's mine. That night, when the guests were gone and the stars were sharp in the sky, I sat with Lena on the porch. You're not afraid, are you? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Not anymore. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Good. Because I think when people like you leave, they don't really go anywhere. What do you mean? She pointed to her heart. You stay right here. I smiled. And for the first time in a long, long life, I felt ready. Weeks later, on a morning painted in golden light, I passed in my sleep. No pain. No regret. Just stillness. Emily found me. A book on my chest, a smile on my face. She cried, of course, but not the way she had before. This time, it was for love that had finished its work. She read my journals. Every page. She continued the work we started, built a foundation in my name. Added Lena's name to the deed of the house. Started a program for foster kids learning finance. Wrote a memoir, but gave all the profits to charity. She never let the story be about the money. It was always about something bigger. If you visit the senior center today, you'll see a plaque on the front. The Harold Thornton Center, built on grace, forgiveness, and the power of a second chance. And inside, in a quiet sunlit hallway, there's a photo of me. Old, smiling, holding a crumpled lottery ticket in one hand, and my daughter's hand in the other.